Hey everyone, today I'm going to give you some quick tips to help you figure out what tweezers are best for you. And this is what I look for when I'm purchasing tweezers. It's hard to know because I know there's some that are super expensive and some that are super cheap, and having the right tools is essential to being able to do quick work that's accurate. It makes your life easier, and if you have the right tools, you'll actually prevent pain. Okay, so here's my little tips. Tip number one, you want to look for tools that don't fall apart in the barbicide. These are actually a prototype we had made here, so I'm not just disparaging anyone else's product. Obviously these got thrown out, but they did a plating, and a lot of them do have kind of a coating or a plating, and you want to make sure that when you leave it in the barbicide, which is the sanitizer or disinfectant, that it's not going to start peeling on you. These were actually a nightmare where they started like flaking off while I was working. So none of the new tweezers obviously do that, but I wanted to show you my own so I wasn't insulting anyone else's brand. But you want to make sure that if you buy tweezers, they're not coated, so that way you're not going to deal with little pieces flaking off while you're working and it just looks ugly. So tip number two is I like a tool that's light but not flimsy. So the Lash X tweezers that we make, I love them because there's a little bit of body to them. I actually have some resistance, so I really feel in control when I'm working with them. But they're not so light that I have to squeeze really hard. That could actually give you the opposite effect. So if your tool is too flimsy and you're squeezing really hard, that static tension is actually going to cause pain in your shoulder, pain in your wrist, pain in your hand. So by getting something that has a little bit of body where you can lightly squeeze it, that's the best for saving your body and for working really quickly. I brought these out because this is an example of something that's a little too heavy for me. They're really stiff, so I feel like with these you do have to put a bit more pressure, and I don't care for that either. So it's finding that sweet spot of not too flimsy but not too stiff. These are probably more for like jewelry making, or I know people sell them as lash tweezers, but I think they're a little too heavy. The third thing I look for is nice solid tips. If your tip is too thin or pointy, they'll easily bend and then you won't be able to grab the lash. So I like to be able to scrape my tools if adhesive gets built up on them. I don't believe in putting them in acetone because acetone can be dangerous near the client and wear away at your tool. So what I just do if I have adhesive built up is I just use another pair to scrape the adhesive off. So because of that, I like a nice stiff tip that's not gonna bend, hopefully, if I drop it or work with it, so that I always have a good grip and they last for years. And these tools I pulled out, they're actually my working tools. Well, these ones are new, but these ones were in my kit, and I've had them probably each over like 3 or 4. These I've had for probably 7 years. So they do last a lifetime if you get the right tools. So these are called the needle nose and the pointed tweezer, and these are really great. They're nice body, they're not too flimsy, and they're not too stiff. And they're a little bit smaller for working with your hand and manipulating them. The next thing I look for is a clean, flat surface. So when I'm doing my volume fans, I want to make sure that there's a really nice grip here. And so in order to get that, you need a nice, clean, flat surface that grips the whole way. You don't want any gaps, because when you go to grab your fan, if there's a gap, you're actually going to lose a few of your hairs in the fan, which will be really frustrating and take you forever. So you need a nice, clean grip on your tool. And I use a few different tools for my volume and mega volume. So these I use for both isolating and volume. And then I have my regular volume tweezers. And I got a clean pair because mine are a little beat up. They still work great, but they don't look as pretty because I've had them for so long. But these are my volume ones, and you'll notice, I don't know if you guys can see, but there's a really nice clean edge there. I love these boots. I don't have to put a lot of tension, because when you do a lot of volume all day, you can get pain. So these don't need a lot of tension. They just kind of grab your fan and go, and they give you a nice clean edge. So love these. And then lastly, we have our new mega volume, which is great. Basically, it's the same thing, but it has a wider base. So this part is actually a bigger boot, so you can grab a much bigger fan for those mega volumes. And again, it has that nice clean bend. If you do drop your tweezers, you always want to check that this bend stays nice and smooth. If you get glue in there or hair in there, it's also going to prevent you from getting a nice clean grip. So you'd want to clean that out, and then just make sure you file this to keep it nice and level. So you always have quick, easy success. And then my last tip, and you guys, I did a whole video on these tweezers, but I can't do this video without mentioning them, is my X tweezers. These guys are my are my babies. I use these for a lot of things. Basically, they're opposite. So when I squeeze them, it releases, and when I let go, it holds the hair. What that allows me to do is rotate the hair. So if I want to do eyebrow extensions or under lashes, I'm not doing crazy things with my wrist, which is really saving me from having pain. The other thing is I use them for classic, so I can just do a quick squeeze. I'm not keeping tension on my arm all day. And some days, you know, you're doing 8 to 10 to 12 people in a day. I've even worked 14-hour days before. If you don't have something that's gonna, you know, allow you to work easily without putting strain, you will get some carpal tunnel and some pain. So I hope this is helpful. 5 tips for finding great tweezers. If you guys have questions, please comment below. And as always, if you find this helpful, please subscribe and like. Thanks so much for tuning in.